The film opens with a woman named Andrea, visibly terrified as she cautiously enters an elevator while on the phone with the police. Moments later, she receives a call from an unknown number, and in a state of panic, she frantically witnesses the elevator walls closing in on her. On the other side of the story, Jennifer arrives at a celebration hosted by her close friend Gina at her home. At the party, Jennifer encounters Brian, her former lover with whom she once shared a painful past. Their brief relationship had resulted in the premature birth of a baby that tragically did not survive, an event that left Jennifer with deep-seated trauma and overwhelming pressure in her life. At the same event, she is introduced to a psychiatrist and hypnotherapist, Dr. Colin Meade. Before parting ways, Dr. Meade hands Jennifer his business card, suggesting that Jennifer might consider a consultation with him if needed. Later that evening, Brian arrives to pick up Jennifer and drives her home. The following morning, however, Jennifer awakens to find that Brian has already left, leaving behind only a note. Concerned for her well-being, Gina advises Jennifer to seek help from Dr. Meade to cope with her depression and lingering trauma. Agreeing with her friend's suggestion, Jennifer schedules her first consultation with Dr. Meade, during which she begins to recount her problems and the traumatic events of her past. Dr. Meade recommends that Jennifer continue with hypnotherapy, a treatment known for its effectiveness in healing deep emotional wounds. The session begins as Dr. Meade guides Jennifer into her subconscious, enabling her to successfully complete her first therapeutic session. 3 months later, Jennifer begins to experience the positive effects of the therapy. She is gradually able to enjoy life again and start putting thoughts of Brian behind her. However, one night while sleeping, Jennifer is startled to see an image of Dr. Meade lying beside her on the bed. Soon after, she meets with him in person to share her joy over the significant changes in her life, including her recent job acceptance at a reputable company. Dr. Meade is visibly pleased with her progress, and the two share personal stories while he continuously offers advice and motivation to help her improve. Encouraged by their conversations, Dr. Meade suggests that Jennifer invite Brian over for dinner so that they might reconcile their past. Later that evening, as Jennifer returns home, she receives another call from an unknown number. When she finally opens her eyes, she finds herself seated at a dining table. Next to her, an overturned chair and a figure moaning faintly in the bathroom catch her attention. Approaching the figure, she discovers that Brian has collapsed, surrounded by scattered vomit, a scene that suggests he has been poisoned. The next day, when Jennifer recounts the events to Gina, she admits that she has no memory of what transpired in her home. Her recollection is limited to standing in front of a store while receiving a phone call and then suddenly finding herself at the dining table. Haunted by her fragmented memories, Jennifer becomes increasingly anxious and arranges another consultation with Dr. Meade. During this session, she suddenly recalls that the previous night, while preparing dinner, she had answered a phone call that instructed her to do something specific. She remembers with growing horror pouring sesame oil into Brian's food, an act that ultimately led to his poisoning. Unbeknownst to her, she had no conscious recollection of these actions, instead believing that she had been influenced by an external force over the phone, a force she now suspects was none other than Dr. Meade himself. Shortly thereafter, Jennifer stumbles upon online reports detailing alarming allegations against Dr. Meade's therapy sessions. According to the information circulating on the internet, his hypnotherapy has been linked to several criminal cases, with patients reportedly committing acts such as assault, engaging in substance abuse, and even participating in bank robberies after losing track of time and consciousness during his sessions, symptoms strikingly similar to those now experienced by Jennifer. Despite these disturbing claims, Gina vehemently denies any wrongdoing when confronted by Jennifer, insisting that everything she remembers is entirely accurate and that she acted of her own free will. Jennifer, however, remains unconvinced, arguing that an unseen influence controlled her actions. Determined to uncover the truth, Jennifer confides in Gina that they must be under the influence of Dr. Meade's suggestive techniques. Together, they visit the police station to seek further answers. There, they meet Detective Rollin, to whom Jennifer explains the bizarre experiences following her hypnotherapy sessions, and they ask about Andrea's case. The detective reveals that an investigation into Dr. Meade had already been conducted in connection with Andrea's case, the woman from the opening scene whose death in the elevator was attributed to a fatal heart attack, triggered by extreme fear. Detective Rollin explains that Andrea had experienced a state of physical shutdown characterized by increased heart rate, rapid respiration, and eventual paralysis. Although he had interrogated Dr. Meade regarding the case, the lack of concrete evidence led to its swift closure. He then shows them a photograph and CCTV footage of Andrea in the elevator, reinforcing his explanation of her tragic demise. Before dismissing the matter, Detective Rollin advises them to consider seeking a new therapist. After leaving the station, Gina reveals that she too had recently undergone a hypnotherapy session with Dr. Meade. Fueled by suspicion and a desire for justice, Jennifer promptly makes another appointment with Dr. Meade, determined to gather evidence of his misconduct and ultimately bring him to justice. Before entering, Jennifer activated her voice recorder to capture every event during her session. At the police station, Detective Rollins reopened case files involving several of Dr. Colin Meade's patients.
I was hoping I could have a moment of your time to ask you some questions.
Upon leaving the clinic, Jennifer reviewed her recording and discovered that Dr. Meade had already extracted information regarding the purpose of her visit, including details about her trip to the police station with Gina. Instantly, Jennifer left and tried to contact Gina to prevent any undesirable consequences. At that moment, Gina was on the road with a man, en route to meet a client. Jennifer warned her and got out of the car. However, due to a choppy connection, Gina did not catch Jennifer's warning clearly. Shortly thereafter, an unknown number called Gina. Unaware of any potential danger, she answered the call. On the other end of the line, a man's voice, most likely Dr. Meade's, could be heard. Immediately, Gina began to experience disturbing hallucinations that filled her with terror, causing her car to spiral out of control and ultimately collide with a truck ahead.
Even better. Gina, this is how the... Gina.
Gina! Relax! Gina!
Later, a detective visited Dr. Meade at his clinic and informed him that Gina had died in a car accident. The detective posed several questions and even retrieved a spoon from the scene to collect Dr. Meade's fingerprints. He stated firmly that the deceased patients of Dr. Meade shared similar patterns and physical characteristics, whereas Gina did not match this profile, suggesting that Dr. Meade might have had a different motive for targeting her. This revelation visibly unsettled Dr. Meade. Detective Rollins then left for Jennifer's home, advising her to go into hiding until his investigation was complete. However, the detective's file was accidentally left behind on Jennifer's dining table. Not long after, there was a knock at Jennifer's door, and it turned out to be Dr. Meade. Forcefully, Dr. Meade broke down the door, and Jennifer immediately froze, unable to move her body, though she retained control over her consciousness. Dr. Meade declared that Brian and Gina were obstacles in his path, and that he intended to eliminate them. Now Detective Rollins had also become his target. After his ominous proclamation, Dr. Meade released his hypnotic influence and quickly departed. Panicked, Jennifer attempted to contact Detective Rollins, but her call would not connect. Meanwhile, Rollins, at home watching television, was suddenly attacked by a woman, one of Dr. Meade's patients, armed with a sharp weapon. The assault left Rollins injured, though he managed to subdue the assailant. As events continued to spiral, Jennifer visited Rollins in the hospital and recounted the warnings Dr. Meade had previously given her. Unwilling to remain passive, Jennifer sought the help of another psychiatrist to undergo hypnotherapy, intended to counteract Dr. Meade's influence, and to help her recall what transpired during her earlier session. Jennifer then delved into her subconscious, and her body began convulsing, which sent Dr. Graham, the new psychiatrist, into a state of alarm. Within her subconscious, Jennifer remembered a long-forgotten moment. She was at a dining table in a romantically set scene orchestrated by Dr. Meade. Upon awakening, Dr. Graham explained that Dr. Meade had implanted an anticipatory suggestion designed to block further intrusive suggestions from infiltrating Jennifer's mind. This suggestion, she warned, could be triggered by Dr. Meade at any time, even through a simple phone call. Jennifer confided in Dr. Graham that she had visited a house owned by Xavier Zulivan, who was known to be Dr. Meade's mentor. In response, Dr. Graham implanted a countersuggestion in Jennifer's mind to resist the influence planted by Dr. Meade, ensuring that she could remain aware even as he tried to manipulate her. After returning home, Jennifer researched Xavier Zulivan and later informed Detective Rollins of her journey to his residence. When Jennifer arrived at the house, she found it completely empty. While there, she discovered a photograph of Dr. Meade with his wife, who was wearing a red dress, exactly as she remembered from her implanted memory. To her shock, Dr. Meade suddenly appeared behind her and ordered her to sleep. It was then revealed that Xavier Zulivan was, in fact, Dr. Meade's father. The scene shifted back to Detective Rollins, who received further information indicating that Dr. Meade's true name was Julian Zulivan. Rollins and the police quickly rushed to Dr. Meade's clinic. Meanwhile, Jennifer awoke and continued to try contacting Rollins, but Dr. Meade, still present, explained his motives. He claimed that his actions were driven by a desire to resurrect the memories of his late wife, Amy, and that the uncanny resemblance between Jennifer and Amy had compelled him to seek Jennifer as a substitute for his lost love. Dr. Meade then escorted Jennifer to a room, unmasked her face, and dressed her in a red dress. In that moment, Jennifer recognized the room from the memory Dr. Meade had previously implanted in her mind. Detective Rollins and his team eventually arrived at Dr. Meade's clinic, only to find it deserted. Rollins then hastily tracked down and went to Xavier Zulivan's residence. Upon his arrival, however, Dr. Meade detected Rollins's presence and subsequently confined Jennifer. There, Jennifer fought desperately against the lingering suggestion until she finally managed to break free. Meanwhile, Dr. Meade launched an assault on Rollins, rendering him incapacitated. When Jennifer arrived on the scene, Dr. Meade immediately paralyzed her. Slowly, she retrieved a pistol and fired a shot at Dr. Meade. In that moment, Jennifer awoke once more, still partially under the influence of suggestion, and saw Rollins by her side, only to realize that the person before her was actually Dr. Meade in disguise. Jennifer's realization came thanks to the counter-suggestion implanted by Dr. Graham. Whenever Dr. Meade uttered a specific phrase, she would snap back to full consciousness. Seizing the opportunity, Jennifer quickly fled and found Detective Rollins helpless and in distress. Rollins urged her to pick up the pistol that lay at his feet, and without hesitation, Jennifer fired another shot directly into Dr. Meade's chest, killing him instantly.
Come here!
Right here, look at me. Stand, yeah, stay with me. I'm by your side. They're coming.
A month later, Jennifer was seen working at a company and enjoying a normal, pleasant life. She visited Brian, who was still hospitalized, and was relieved to learn that his condition was steadily improving. Jennifer promised him that she would always remain by his side. Soon after, she met up with Detective Rollins, who had recovered and resumed his regular activities. And so, the film concludes. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe. Because by subscribing, you have supported me to make better videos. See you in the next video.